Okay, so this page is called a giant envelope. All right, and we're just going to remove those bits I've got on the side there. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to take an 8" by 8" square piece of card. Okay, so it will look like that, and then you're going to cut it diagonally. Okay, so you end up with your 4 triangles, and then on the long side of your triangle you're going to score a 1/2 inch like little flap hinge. Okay, and that's what we're going to use to attach to our page. Now you'll notice that I have corner rounded on 3, so I just wanted to show you the 4th one. So I'm actually using my envelope punch. Okay, now if you haven't got a board, you can get just the envelope punches themselves. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that in there, and it's nice and it's got a 90-degree angle to it, and now I can just punch it, and that gives me that rounded effect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to add our red liner tape. So here we go. Oops. And I always add this before I snip off the ends, so I get a nice finish to the flap, and it means that the tape has gone as close to the edge as I could possibly get it. So I'll just do that. Oh, there's my other scissors, they're my better ones for cutting. There we go. And I'm just going to do this on all of these, like so. Just going to snip that 1, 2, and then here we are is our next one. Oops. Okay, and then our final one. Right, there we go, like so. Okay, so there's our 4 bits. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fold those back and give them a good score, or burnish rather, like so. And you can see we've ended up with like these little sticky out bits. Okay, and what we're going to do, we're just going to trim them back. So I'm just using my scissors, and I'm going to come in and cut back so you don't see those. So what we're going to see, so now you can see that we've just got, it looks almost like a diamond, a bit of a squash diamond shape, but you get the idea. So we're just going to do that all of these. Okay, just going to come in and snip. Oops, slightly snipped that one a little bit too much, but never mind. Okay, 1, 2, and then our final 2. Like so. There's that one, and here we go, we're coming in on that one. So you can see now why I cut it after the tape has been added, because that takes that tape right up to that edge. And then this one, I think this one needs a little bit more of a burnish. Let's give that one a little, here we go. Oops, cut that, there we go. Okay, so let's bring in our page. So we've got our hinge on the right hand side for this page, and basically these are just, we're literally just going to make up our square again. Okay, and then we're going to come round and do that side, and then the final one will go in at the top. So the idea is that each of the flaps will open up. Okay, so let's get the first one in. Now I've guesstimated about 1/8 of an inch gap all the way round on the page, and if I put those 2 points together, I can see I've got plenty of wiggle space to do that. But what we need to do is get one on first, and then that will guide round with the others. So I'm just going to take the tape off. I'm going to add a little bit of glue, as I like to call it, wiggle glue, just in case I don't stick it straight, I can whip it off. There we go. All right, I'm just going to bring that in, and I'm just going to come in from the bottom edge, as I said, about 1/8 of an inch, like so, and I'm just making sure that I've got even side gap either side of our flap. Okay, so just seal that down, so that's all good to go. And now I can come up and do the other side. Now the important thing is that when we're sticking these together, let me just tuck a bit of white card under there so you can see what I mean. So when we're sticking these together, okay, put these down, we're making sure that one, we're lining it up, but two, that those edges are butting up to each other. Okay, and that also this is also a straight edge, otherwise it's going to throw everything out, and we don't want to do that. So let's just peel off this next bit. Okay, oh goodness me, there. I'm going to add a bit of glue for wiggle, like so, and now we can attach this. Okay, so I'm just making sure that is lined up as much as I can. This is why we add the glue, just to make sure that everything is nice and straight, and that I've got a nice straight edge coming down on our side there. And let's just tuck that under, and that is not bad. Doing that by eye, that is not bad at all. Okay, so now I'm going to come around and do the other side. Take this tape off. There we go. Just going to add a bit more glue. Like so. And now I'm going to, again, I need to make sure that I'm butting that right up against that other one, and that I'm in line with that. I'm going to stick that one down. And now the moment of truth, everybody, is this one going to fit? Yes, it does. It just fits in snugly there. Thank goodness for that. Right, let's just take the tape off. Like so. Okay, and now I can butt that up against that edge. So this is the tricky bit, because you've got to try and get two sides lined up as best as I can. And there we go. And that is our basic envelope. Okay, so I've called it an envelope because it's just the way that I've rounded the edges and stuff like that, and obviously you're unfolding it, and then you get whatever the surprise is inside. Okay, so at this point we can put in our patterned paper, but we will do all the decoration later. before we go ahead and add any other little elements and things in there that we want to do. Now what I could do, just to give you some ideas, is that I could put in some like little mini envelopes. So I could make a couple of little mini envelopes to go inside, so it's all envelopes. I could, with my patterned paper, cut out some photo slots and have those go on, or I could just put in some photo, just put in some actual photo mats on there and just stick them down, so you're revealing that surprise. Okay, so now what we've got to work out is how we're going to keep all of these closed down together. All right, so what we're going to do is I think we're going to get our circle punch, and we're going to cut out a couple of circles, and then we're going to put it on there so it looks a bit like it's been stamped, or like sealed, if you get my drift. So let's just go and grab those, and then we can get on with that. Right, so I've got a bit of scrap card here, and this is a 2-inch circle punch. So I'm just going to cut out one of those. I was just going to test it because I want to make sure it's going to go over and cover that, and we're going to put a couple of magnets on as well to hold that down. So I just need to make sure that the circle is big enough to cover that. So let's just grab a couple of magnets, and I'm just going to add a little bit of glue, coming up close to that edge, but not too close that we've got, when we put our patterned paper on, that it's going to show, because we're going to leave 1/8 of an inch of the pattern paper going round. So you would just want to probably come down about 3/8 of an inch, no, rather, sorry, 1/4 of an inch to come down from that edge. So I just get that centered. So I'm just going to get my circle, and that's going to cover those beautifully. Now, if I had my pattern paper already done, I would stick that on now, but because I haven't, I'm just going to add a little bit of black tape just to hold those in place, so I can get the enclosure bit sorted. So I'm just going to tuck that on there, and these will come off, the black tape will come off once the glue has dried underneath, but I'm just tucking these down like so, just to hold those in place. Okay, so we're obviously going for the opposites, and then we're just going to grab another magnet and pop those on like so. Now, because these are springing up a bit, I'm just going to, so I get a good fit on here, I'm just going to hold down, don't quite think that one's going to fit on there. Let's just hold these down so I don't have any springiness of the card interfering with how I'm going to lay these down. Put the circle on. Let's see if that will hold that down a bit. Not quite. I might just have to stick something on that. Let's just weight you down. There we go. All right, so now I've got my circle, and we're just going to add a little bit of glue onto these so we can get our little imprint. Get my circle, and I'm now just going to push that down and hold those in place for a minute. Okay, and I think I've got it fairly evenly spaced, or not too bad. Right, okay, so I could probably come over a little bit, down a little bit more. Let's just redo that like so. So I need to come down a fraction so I can feel, let's just take that up a little bit. I've got more. So let's hold those in place. I think they are going to work. So we've got one stuck on there already. that one is going to go on, and again I'm just going to add a little bit of black tape to those just to keep those in place. Now, depending on the strength of your magnets, sometimes I would cut a second black circle and cover those in, and then you've got your cardstock going on there as well. But there we go, so that fits on nicely. But because I haven't got my patterned paper and all the rest of it, and I want to make sure I've got a good catch with the flaps because they are a little bit springy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it with just one disc, okay, and then put my pattern paper on both sides, okay. But there we go, so that is just holding down on there. I think I just need to give these a little bit more of a, I think once we've got the other cardstock on there, that will weight that down a bit, but these are just a little bit springy. Let's just give that a little bit of a punch like that. And there we go. And that is that page or that side done. Right, so for this side, we are going to have it with a horizontal pocket. So there's my horizontal pocket, and then we've got two flaps. So we've got one big flap which is going to open up from top of our page. Then we've got our horizontal pocket, which I think my plan is that when that comes in on the outside. So we've got the horizontal pocket that is going to go on the outside of that main pocket, and then we're going to add the flap on that, and then when we open it up we've got all this space. So with our patterned paper we can put lots of like little photo slots in, or photo mats in there ready to take all our photos. So what we need to do is, let's go with our small one. Let's add in our red liner tape. So we're just going to do the two flaps first. So obviously this is the large one, which was 7.5 by 7 inches. And we've just scored our 1/2 inch on the 7.5 inch side. So let's just snip that. And then we've got our smaller one, which is 6.5 by 4.5. Okay, I'm just going to cut that, and this is scored 1/2 inch on the 4.5 inch side. And then we've got our pocket, which is 7.5 by 4.25, and we score 1/2 inch on two short sides, okay, and one long side. So this is the two short sides, okay, and then we've got the one long side. Okay, and we're just going to tap that on there. Right, now let's just get my burnish tool. Let's just, whoops, give that a little, make sure that is stuck down. There we go. Lovely. Okay, so for the little flap that's going to be on the outside of our bigger flap, I'm going to round off the corners. So I'm just going to do this on the medium setting, like so. And then on the big pockets, the big flap, I'm going to do exactly the same. Just going to corner around those. So you need to make a decision really that when you're doing your pages, whether you're going to round off your flaps and that all the way through your album. It just keeps a continuity there. So here we go, we've got our pocket. So we're going to cut across diagonally to where the score lines cross over, and then we're going to wonky it a little bit. So we're coming across to the score lines, and then we're going to just wonk the scissors, and then we're going to come up to the score lines, and then we're going to give it another little wonk. Okay, and the reason for this is that when we fold these over, we don't get a lot of bulk in our corner. Okay, if you're really good at doing a 45-degree angle cut, then by all means you can go straight across and do a 45-degree angle. I'm not very good at that, hence why I have the little wonky bit. Okay, so I've got my large flap here, and what I need to do is make sure that I've got my red liner tape going underneath, because that's how it's going to stick down. And then my pocket is going to come in down here at the bottom, okay, about 1/8 of an inch from the bottom, and then you're coming in evenly at the sides. Okay, and then the flap is going to come from the top part and sit over that. So let's get this one stuck down first. So I'll just take our red liner tape off. Just going to add our glue, and I didn't mean to do that. And I'm just going to put this on like so. And I'm probably coming up just a fraction more than 1/8 of an inch, just so I can clear those rounded corners nicely. Now, because I've not sorted out the pattern paper yet, I'm going to put a strip of black tape across there, just in case I end up paper piecing, or I don't have enough, and that the cardstock won't come right to the base of the pocket. But it just covers any eventualities. There we go, and it just helps with that smooth transition of when you're putting bits and pieces in. Okay, and now I can take off the sides and get this done like so. There we go. Just tuck those in. Try and make that as straight as we can. I think my score line is slightly off there, but that'll be fine. Once we've got our patterned paper on there, we're not going to see that. Okay, right, and now I'm going to turn it round, and we've got our flap. So we're going to fold back so our red liner tape's on the other side, and this is now going to be used to sit over the top. We're going to come not right up to the edge of where that hinge score line is, but we're going to come down, and we're going to line up our pocket edges to our flap edges. Okay, so I'm just going to take some tape off. Okay, and now we're going to add this on, and I'm just coming in from the top, making sure I've got that nice straight edge. That just needs to come over a fraction. There we go. I'll just make sure that is as straight as we can. And then when we've got the flap going back, I've got that straight edge at the top. So I'm just going to give that another score just to flatten that down. Okay, so these are on the outside of this flap that is going to come up. Okay, now if you wanted to, you could make yourself another envelope, another pocket, and put that in at the bottom if you didn't want to fill the whole thing with photo slots and so forth. Okay, so you could make yourself another pocket to go in underneath. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. I think it really does depend on how much paper I've got left. Might have to add a pocket in anyway. And in fact, thinking about it, I think I probably will. But it's just the beauty of these pages, is that you can mix and match and change things around. So here we go. So this is my top. So as you can see, it's upside down because there's my top. And now this big flap is coming in at the top here. And again, I'm allowing that 1/8 of an inch drop down from that top edge. It's not quite straight. Here we go. And that's why we put the glue on there, everybody. Okay. And that is our side. So basically, when you look at it, it looks like you've got just a flap and a pocket, but then the whole thing opens up and you've got your inside to do as well. Okay, so the only other thing is to sort out magnets. So we need to put a magnet on here, or we could put a swivel die. Okay, but I think for this one, because it's going to get a lot of up and down on that flap, we will put in a magnet. Now you could put in 2 magnets, one either side, but I think, to be honest, we'll just be okay with the one. So again, just going to grab my magnet, just going to add a little bit of glue like so, and I'm just going to pop that on, hold that in place. I'm just going to get a little bit of tape to allow that to dry, and then I can take the tape off like so. Then I'm going to grab my other magnet and we're just going to fold that over so we get an imprint of the magnet on the other side. There we are. Now I can whip that over and put that in situ. There we go, with another little bit of tape. Okay, so that's one magnet on there for that to come over, and then when we lift this up, I think it would be a good idea to put a couple of magnets. So we're just going to add another 2 magnets onto this side. So let's just get 2, and I'm just going to come in a little bit on those corners, and again going to tuck those down. Now add a little bit of tape to hold those in place. Like so. There we go. And now I can pop these ones on. And just like we did before, I can just do the imprint on the other side. Now obviously, if I was going to put another pocket in there, I would put the pocket in first, okay, so that the magnets will sit on the outside of the pocket, but I will make that decision a little bit later. So just by sticking these on for now, at least I know that my page is almost done, and if I need to alter it, I can. And we'll just get another bit of tape. We're just going to stick that on there like so. So it wouldn't hurt later on when we come to put all the pages together, if I realise I need more pockets, that I can add that one in. But for now, that is that page done. Okay, so for this side, we are going to do, we've got 2 pockets and 2 flaps. Okay, so we've got a large pocket, a smaller pocket, and 2 small flaps. So the large pocket is 8 inches by 4 inches, and I've scored on the 2 short sides and one long side, the 1/2 inch. Okay, so we're just going to add our tape on here. There we go, like so. And then the smaller, oh, come on, cut scissors, there we go. The smaller pocket is 7.5 inches by 3 inches. So I'm just going to give that, and again I've scored 1/2 inch on 2 short sides and 1 long. Okay, and let's just pop that on there. There we go. And then the 2 flaps, which are 3 1/4 by 4 3/4, and we've scored the 1/2 inch on the 4 3/4 inch side. Okay, like so. And on the flaps I'm going to corner round, so let's just bring in my corner rounder. So I'm just going to corner round those and just do the other one. There we go. Right, I'll just give those a little burnish, make sure that these are all sticking down good and proper. There we go, like so. And then I'm going to cut across the diagonal, across to where the score lines cross over, and then give it a little wonk. And then I'm going to do exactly the same, cross over, give it a little wonk, like so. And then we're going to do the same on the smaller pocket. Going to cross over and give it a little wonk, cross where the crossover is, oops, and give that a little wonk. There we go. Scissors not quite cutting there. I think I need to give them a clean. Right. Okay, and I'm going to put a notch in the smaller one. So let's flip this over so I can put my pencil line on. And because this is 7.5, so we need the notch to go in at 3 3/4. So we're just going to put our little mark on there, and then my little punch, notch punch. Now if you don't have a notch punch, you can use a circle punch and cut like a 1/2 circle out. You don't have to put the notch in at all, but I just thought it would just give the page a little bit of different detail. Okay, so let's bring in our side. So I'm just going to fold these over like so and get a nice sharp edge on our score lines. There we are. I'm just going to do this one, and now this one. Okay, and then the final side. Okay, so we are good to go. I'll just fold over our flaps. There we are. And the other side. There we go. Right, so let's bring in our page. So what's going to happen is that the large pocket is going to go on first, then the smaller pocket will sit on top of that, and then we've got 1 flap and 2 flaps. Okay, so let's peel off our red liner tape, and we're just going to add some glue for a little bit of wiggle room. Okay, I'm just going to set this in. So I'm coming about 1/8 of an inch away from the hinge score line. Okay, like so, and I'll just centre that, make sure I've got roughly the same sort of distance either side. And I'm going to add my black tape strip. There we go. Even though I might be putting card in here or the patterned paper, but if I haven't got enough, then I know that at least I can cut it cut it short, and that'll just help. So I'm just going to remove our tape, and we're going to get this one stuck down. Oh, there we go, and that side's going to come in, and that's nice and straight. And then I'm coming over, I can see that my edge is slightly out on there, so I'm just going to crease that just to get a nicer edge on that. There we go. That's it, that's not too bad. Right, so that is our pocket done. Okay, finally we've got our flaps. When we add our flaps, we need to make sure that we are coming along the same line at the top and the bottom of where our pockets sit. They will overlap, and that we've got an equal distance either side of those as well. So let's just put one of these down. I'm just going to get my glue. There we go. So take a little bit of time just to get everything lined up. Okay, so just going to lift that up. I can see I'm not quite straight at the bottom. There we go. I appreciate it's a little bit hard to see black on black, so if I tuck this underneath here, you can see that I'm trying to get this line as straight with the other one, and that this side here is also straight, so we can give that another little burnish. And now we're just going to add the other pocket, or the flap rather, on the top, and this time I've got to line it up with the top and the two sides down here as well. So let's just get this done. Okay, and oh yes, a little bit of glue I think might come in handy, like so. And now I'm going to pop that on like so, making sure that I'm nice and straight, and that I'm got a straight edge. I need to come down just a fraction more to be in line with that one at the top there, and I'm fairly straight down the sides. So there we are, we're good to go with that one. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and stick on my patterned paper on the pocket, because obviously when I add the smaller pockets, I need to have my paper behind. Okay, so I'll just got my ruler there just so I can see where my straight edges, make sure I'm coming up even all the way round, because I don't want my pocket to sort of be out of place. And then I've got my ruler here, so again I can just see where that is going to sit, and that's just going to sit in line and to one side of where I've distress inked and faux stitched round. But before we do that, I need to add my pattern paper onto my pocket. So I've gone round and I've faux stitched up to a point because I need to put the notch out. Now I could have stuck my patterned paper on and then punched it out, so that's one method, but because I wasn't sure what pattern paper I was going to put on, obviously I didn't do that. But now I've sorted that out, I can put the pattern paper on ready like so, and I can now turn that over and punch the hole out, lining this up like so. So I'm just going to line that up like that. So depending on how strong your notch punch is, you see, makes that so much easier to go in and do that. And then I'm just going to grab my distress ink, because I've gone around and distressed all around that. I'm just going to go in and do that, and now I can just go in and do the last few bits of faux stitching ready before we attach it to the front pocket, like so. There we go. There we are. Always a little bit tricky doing it around a curve, but we're there, we're good to go. And then because this pocket is going to sit on top of here, I've got these little lugs here that are folding over, so I'm just going to miter those just a fraction, if my scissors will work. Here we go, like so. And then I can now fix this on like I would do normally. So I'm just using my ruler as a rough guide so that I can make sure that I've got this fairly evenly spaced on there. So let's do the bottom bit first. We're just going to take this off, red liner tape, going to add a little bit of glue. There we go. And we're just going to attach that like so. And now I've got my little faux stitching lines in there. It just makes it a little bit easier, and I can see from my ruler that I'm fairly straight on that. And then I'm just going to get some tape. Run that down on the inside, and now I can do the side pieces. So let's just stick that on like so. Okay, and now I can fold that on, and then that is the pocket sides done. So moving on to our next page. So this one is the sort of like fixed accordion, as I've called it, and you've got a slimline pocket on there as well. So we've got all our bits, so let's just go through these measurements, and we'll put the red liner tape on as we do. So the pocket, which is at the base of the page, is 3 inches by 7.5 inches, and I've scored on the two short sides the 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch on the long side. So we'll just get these prepped ready like so. Okay. Alright, I've got my little 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 photo mat, which is what I'm going to use as my closure. And then we've got our 2 accordion pieces. So we've got one that is 7 inches by 4 1/4, and you're scoring on the 7-inch side at 3 1/4 and 6 1/2. Which I think is wrong. No, actually it should be 1/2 inch. That should be 1/2 inch and 3 3/4 inch. So apologies for that. So that's 1/2 inch and 3 3/4 inch on the 7-inch side. This is why we just double check everything. Okay, and then on the smaller piece, this is 6 1/2 inches by, again, 4 1/4, and we are scoring just on the 3 1/4 inch. So basically we're doing that, so we're folding it in half. Okay, and then we've got our outside cover, which is 7 inches by 4 1/4, and we're just scoring on the 7-inch, 1/2 inch side. Okay, so good job we double checked our measurements. Okay, so I'm just going to add the red liner tape to the outside cover, like so, or the outside flap, whatever you want to call it. Then our 2 other pieces here, where we've got our 1/2 inch on there, we're going to join those together to make one long piece. So let's just get tape on there, like so. Okay, we're going to join those together, and then we've got our pocket already done. So let's get these stuck and then we can carry on. So I'm just going to peel off our tape once it stops sticking to my hand and I'm just going to overlap this up to that score line there at the 3 1/2 inch, like so, making sure that my sides are nice and straight. So we end up with our little accordion bit going on like so. Okay, and then we've got our pocket. So let's get our pocket sorted. So again, cutting across to where the score lines cross over and giving it a little wonky bit, and again over to the score lines and give that a little wonky bit. And we're just going to fold and get our pocket ready. Okay, right, and where's my lovely burnish? Let's just give that a good burnish. There we go. So on our side, what we're going to do is that the pocket is going to come down to the bottom, okay, like so, and then our flap is going to go on there as well. Now, as you can see, these come quite a way in from the sides, all right, and so we just need to be wary of that when we stick our pocket on, that we've got everything else lined in with that. And then when this opens up, we will attach our accordion bit so that when that closes, then that hides that. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So first of all, I'm going to I think we'll actually probably put our patterned paper on, because I'm just looking at this thinking that you're not going to see the patterned paper much until we lift that up. So let's get our bit of patterned paper. So for our base patterned paper, we need a 7-inch by 7-inch square. Okay, so let's get that sorted and then we can get everything attached. Okay, so I've got my bit of patterned cardstock. I've just gone with plain on the back for the background. Okay, that, as I said, is 7 inches by 7 inches. As you can see, that sits quite snugly on there. And what we're going to do is that our flap, or our outside cover, is going to literally come down about 1/8 of an inch, if that, from that top edge, because when we put our pockets on, as you can see, it is quite a snug fit. There will be just a little gap between the two, just to show the blue poking through. Okay, but what I want to do is I don't just want to stick this down on there. What I want to do is cut a slot so I can tuck this in. Okay, and that means that where normally we would fold back on our flap with our red liner tape, we're going to bring it so it folds on the inside, because when we put this in, we're going to tuck it in, and then that's going to stick to the back. So let's get our bit of excuse me, get our cutting mat. Okay, and now because this is going to be the top, okay, and I want it going in that side so it opens out that way, I need to flip this over, and this is the side that I'm going to draw my line down. And basically I'm going to turn this round, just because it makes it easier for me to manage, and I'm just going to draw on here a pencil mark. So I'm coming down 1/8 of an inch. We know that that is 4 1/4, so I'm coming down on 3, 4. So let's just measure that pencil line. 1, 2, 3, 4, and just a little bit. So I'm just marking that pencil line on there. So if you imagine that when we turn it over, so this is our top, and I've drawn it on the right hand side, our pencil, so that when we turn that over, the cut's going to come in down that side, which is the side that we want to go on the page. Okay, so now I've cut, or I've drawn that, I can go in and cut that, and the pencil mark just gives me a guide. So we've got 4 1/4, so let's just up that a little bit so I can see where I'm going to cut this. Okay, and going in from the one there, oops, and we're just going to come down, not right to the end, because that's a little bit we need to keep attached at the top. So we've now got our little slot in there, and to make this a little bit easier to slide in, I'm just going to snip off the corners, just miter those corners a little bit. So 1 and 2, and let's just try this for size. So that should now just tuck in nicely, and that's going to go right up against that edge. I'm just going to fold that over. So that's not a bad judgment call on that. Okay, and now I can turn this over. I've got that right up to the edge there, and I can peel this bit off and stick it down. All right, so it's not going anywhere, but I'm going to add just a little bit of glue just to make sure that the other side it sits nice and straight. Okay, so we're just going to tuck that down, almost hold that in place. Let's just flip this over, making sure that's nice and level at the top. Got it right up to the top there, and now I can stick that down. Okay, and now we've got our flap, and it's hidden on the inside. It just gives it a nicer, neater finish. All right, and now our pocket, as I said, will just sit down from that. So let's get the pocket on, and then we can do the next bit. So let's just move that out of the way. Don't need all these bits in the way. There we go. Right, so I'm just going to peel off the red liner tape, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue. Now, because this pocket is being stuck right onto the top of the card or the pattern paper, I am just going to give these top ends just a little miter off, just so they're not so obvious within the pocket. Okay, so that when we come to stick this sides down, it's not going to be too bad. Right, okay, so actually let's just grab a couple of my little clips just to hold this down, just so I can get a rough line up with the pocket. Okay, and I'm just going to stick something on it just to hold it down. Right, okay, so now I can go in. I need to come down just a fraction. Okay, and I'm just coming along that bottom. I'm just making sure that that gap is even all the way across. Okay, so there we go. I'll just add that little bit of glue that will go in there, and I'm just going to add a bit of black tape on the inside, like so. Just going to stick that down, and now I can peel off the sides. So we've got the two key element fiddly bits done. so. That's going to come in, and again I'm just making sure that those sides are lining up. And our closure for this to hold that flap down is going to be our little photo mat card, which is going to tuck in and just hold everything in place. Okay, so now I can take these off. Let's come back to our accordion bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick one end on the top end, and then this end is going to be stuck down in line. So if you look, I'm basically stretching that right out, okay, because the mechanism works when we lift up the flap. As you can see, that comes over and then that folds down and it's all hidden inside. So let's get this glued down. Now I've got it as a W. You can see that, so you've got your mounting fold there, and then you've got your two valleys. All right, so let's add our glue to this. Now these panels, I've done it so that you can fit a 3 by 4 inch photo on these quite comfortably with your 1/8 of an inch trim all the way round. And when we're sticking these down, obviously we need to try and match it as close to the cover as we can so it doesn't give anything away. And now that's going to come down like so. All right, so just looking at that. So this one now is the one that I need to stick down. So let's grab our glue, and we're just going to fold the whole thing down, and hopefully that is going to stick. Whoa, not quite all the glue everywhere. Right, okay, it's going to stick down in situ. Bearing in mind we're trying to keep it as level and as flat as we can. So now that that's done, so the magic should be that when you lift up the flap, you get that opening up like so. Okay, and there we go. And then we've just got, as I said, our 3 by 4 inch little photo mat, or 3 1/4 inch photo mat there, and then that holds that in place. And now that is then ready to attach to our page. So now we've done all the fiddly bits, we can now stick this on, and we are good to go. Okay, so you could put red liner tape on the back. I'm just using my bookbinding glue. So we're just going to pop that across. I mean, I really like this side. So this side is what I'm going to put on the front flap when we come to decorate the rest of it. So we've got the blue contrasting in the background. Okay, and I'm just nudging that over, making sure that that is sitting as square as we can. Whoops, I always over move things. Right, I should just leave it where it was, where I put it originally, because that's 9 times out of 10 is bang on. Right, okay, and there we are, and that is that side done with our little pocket. So you could maybe put another one in there if you want, so you could have 2 that will hold that down. Okay, but I've just grabbed one for the minute to tuck in.